How ancient humans fought brain rot. What if I told you that brain rot, the exact mental fog and cognitive decline you're experiencing right now, has been destroying human civilization for thousands of years? And what if ancient people figured out solutions we've completely forgotten about? Stay with me, because in the next 8 minutes, you're going to discover how ancient humans didn't just survive brain rot, they built entire civilizations around preventing it. Let's start with the brutal truth. Brain rot isn't new. Ancient Greek philosophers wrote about it. Roman doctors documented it. Medieval scholars obsessed over it. But here's what's shocking. They called it something different. They called it melancholia, acedia, or simply the clouding of the mind. Whatever the name, the problem was identical to what you're dealing with today. The ancient Romans were the first to truly understand what was happening. A physician named Galen, arguably the most influential medical mind of his era, identified that brain rot came from one specific place: stagnation. Not just physical stagnation, but mental stagnation. When the mind wasn't being challenged, wasn't being stimulated, wasn't being pushed, it literally began to decay. Sound familiar? But here's where it gets interesting. Instead of accepting brain rot as inevitable, ancient civilizations built their entire daily lives around fighting it, and their methods? Devastatingly effective. The Greeks, particularly in Athens, created what we'd call today cognitive engagement protocols. These weren't apps or supplements, they were literally built into society. Young men would spend hours in the agora, the marketplace, engaging in what they called dialectic. That's just a fancy word for arguing, but not arguing to win, arguing to think, to challenge your assumptions, to force your brain to work harder. Plato understood this so deeply that he built an entire school around it. The academy wasn't a lecture hall, it was a space where contradiction was the curriculum. Students would come with answers, and Socrates, through pure questioning, would systematically dismantle those answers until the students realized they knew nothing. That sounds frustrating, right? But that cognitive friction, that's exactly what prevented brain rot. Meanwhile, in ancient Rome, they took a different approach. The Romans were obsessed with something called otium cum dignitate, leisure with dignity. This wasn't laziness. This was strategic mental recovery. They understood that your brain couldn't operate at full intensity all day, every day. So they built rhythm into life. Intense work periods followed by deliberate rest periods. But, and this is crucial, their rest wasn't passive, it was active rest. They'd go to the baths, yes, but while bathing, they'd engage in philosophical discussion. They'd attend theatrical performances that forced them to follow complex plots and moral arguments. They'd read, they'd debate, even their leisure was cognitively demanding. Now, what about people who actually developed severe brain rot? Because it did happen. Ancient people got depressed, they got cognitively impaired, they forgot things, they lost mental clarity. And here's what they did about it. The treatments were surprisingly sophisticated. Ancient Chinese medicine identified that brain fog came from what they called qi stagnation, basically lack of flow in your system. Their solution? Movement. Systematic, deliberate movement. What we now call Tai Chi and Qigong weren't spiritual practices first, they were medical treatments. They were designed to stimulate blood flow, increase oxygenation to the brain, and force neurological engagement through complex, coordinated movement. In Persia and the Islamic Golden Age, physicians took yet another approach. A doctor named Al-Razi documented that brain rot could be treated through what he called the 5 pillars of mental health. The first was proper sleep, and not just any sleep, but sleep at the right times in the right environment. The second was controlled exposure to novel experiences, travel if possible, new conversations if not. The third was physical exercise. The fourth was dietary regulation, specific foods known to support cognitive function. And the fifth was what he called intellectual stimulation through worthy pursuits. He literally prescribed that his patients engage with ideas bigger than themselves: philosophy, mathematics, theology, art. The brain needed challenge the way muscles needed resistance training. But here's what separates ancient approaches from modern ones: they understood something we've forgotten. Brain rot isn't solved by quick fixes, it's solved by lifestyle architecture. The ancients didn't have energy drinks or nootropics or productivity apps. What they had was structure. They built their societies in ways that made brain rot harder to develop and easier to treat. They understood that your brain is a prediction machine. When it stops being surprised, when it stops encountering genuine novelty, when it stops being challenged, it starts to atrophy. So they built surprise into daily life. The Greeks through dialectic, the Romans through variety, the Chinese through movement, the Persians through travel and study. They also understood circadian rhythm. You think this is a modern discovery? Ancient civilizations lived by the sun. They worked when the sun was up, rested when it was down. Their brains operated on a rhythm that billions of years of evolution had prepared them for, not the chaos of artificial light and constant stimulation we have today. And crucially, they built community into everything. Brain rot thrives in isolation. All of these practices, the agora discussions, the Roman baths, the philosophical debates, they all happened socially. Your brain is a social organ. It evolved to process other minds. When you isolate it, it begins to deteriorate. So, what's the actual takeaway here? If you're experiencing brain rot right now, and statistics suggest you probably are, ancient humans left you a playbook. It's not complicated. It's just specific. First, build genuine cognitive challenge into your day, not passive consumption. Active thinking. Read things that contradict what you believe. Have real conversations where you actually have to defend your ideas. Learn skills that require sustained attention. Second, incorporate movement. Not just exercise, though that helps. Movement that requires coordination and focus. Dancing, martial arts, sports, anything that forces your brain to synchronize with your body. Third, protect your sleep, not as a luxury, as a medical necessity. Ancient humans understood this. You can't think clearly without it. Fourth, seek novelty, new places, new people, new ideas. Your brain needs to be surprised. When it stops being surprised, it starts dying. And fifth, build community into your cognitive practices. Study groups, book clubs, debate clubs. The ancient humans were right. Your brain performs better when it's in dialogue with other minds. Brain rot isn't a personal failing. It's not something you're weak for experiencing. It's what happens when you live in a way that your brain didn't evolve for. The ancients didn't have this problem, not because they were smarter or stronger, but because they built their lives in ways that kept their minds alive. The solution isn't a new app or supplement. It's going back to what worked for thousands of years. Your brain is begging you to challenge it, to move it, to engage it socially, to surprise it. And the moment you start doing that, the moment you stop treating your mind like it can operate on autopilot, that's when brain rot stops. The ancients figured this out centuries ago. The question is, will you?